Merry Christmas. I'm so happy that even with weather or different complications and obstacles that kind of arise, we're still able to have a service together and be able to join online. And I'm hoping that everyone's being able to have a great Christmas morning with their family. I'm sure a lot of you are already in the midst of doing Christmas traditions and having a really good time this morning. I know for me, I remember as a kid getting excited for Christmas. There was this one tradition that we always had. We couldn't come downstairs until Christmas music was being played. So I just remember waiting in my room in the morning, just, at the door, just waiting, like, did I hear it? Did I hear the music? Finally hearing the music. And it was so exciting coming down the stairs to seeing our family and the presents. And that's just how we kicked off Christmas morning. It's just a fun little tradition. Lauren, actually, she had the same tradition as with her family, and we continue that with our boys. So that's really exciting and fun. And there's a lot of different traditions, I'm sure, that your families even do as well. And there's just a lot of traditions that come with Christmas. But I start thinking about the day after Christmas, actually. And I started thinking, when do people start tearing down Christmas? When do people start getting back to their normal routine? When do you take the tree down? When you take the decorations down? Is it the very next day? Is that your family? Is that how you guys operate and do things? Do you leave it up for Christmas break? Keep that Christmas spirit going throughout the new year, maybe after New Year's Day, but maybe that's when you tear it down. I don't know. I bet you every family kind of has a different viewpoint. Some are ready to just get back to normal. Maybe it's the day after. You're like, nope, tree goes down. I want a clean house. And maybe that's you. I can tell you this. Back on the very first Christmas day, the entire world was ready to get back to normal. You see, in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree in the entire Roman world so that they could take numbers of who's still alive, who's paying taxes, who isn't paying taxes. To make this census work, everyone had to travel back to their hometowns. This would be pretty difficult. You'd have to go to your hometown, you'd have to register, you'd have to say, yep, I'm still alive, yep, I'm paying taxes, or actually I need to increase my taxes. And this is just information that they were trying to find. But this would get pretty chaotic because towns' populations would increase all of a sudden because a lot of people are just showing up. It was expensive to travel. It was hard to travel. It was difficult. This was time consuming. And it was all of our taxes, and it was kind of a very frustrating thing. So everyone was ready to get back to normal. Except it would never be normal again. Because on that Christmas day, a baby was born. Not just any baby. A newborn king. The birth of a king. The divine had come to the earth. John chapter 1 verse 14 reads, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us." Unfortunately today, I feel like our culture has reduced Jesus into maybe just a phone a friend. Whenever you're in an emergency or in a tough situation, you pray and you cry out to Jesus. We reduce Jesus to a backup plan. Maybe he's just our comforter. Maybe he's our spare tire in certain situations. That's not how the angel would describe him to Mary. If we look in Luke chapter 1, verses 30, we'll start there. But the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus." Jesus was a Hebrew name, Yeshua, which actually means leader, to deliver, to rescue. Let's continue reading verse 32. It says, "He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High." This was a royal language being used. He will be called the Son of the Most High, the Supreme King. As we continue reading, it says, "The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever." Mary was giving birth to a king, a ruler, a leader. Don't miss what the angel says next in verse 33. It says, "His kingdom will never end." The angel is telling Mary, your son, Jesus, will be king forever and will have a kingdom forever, which means Jesus is still king. Which brings us to one of the most important questions that I feel like we could ask ourselves every single day. Is Jesus my king? Is Jesus your king? Or have I just reduced Jesus to someone I call on emergencies? Have I reduced Jesus to someone that I just wear around my neck or a tattoo on my ankle? Have I reduced Jesus to a backup plan? Here's the thing. When you and I choose not to follow the King, we choose not to participate in his kingdom here on earth that is reflected in heaven. Regardless of whether or not that I believe, if I choose not to submit to the King, I miss out on his kingdom. King Herod believed in the king. We'll find that out if we continue reading Matthew chapter 2. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. So we have King Herod. He was a ruthless king. And you have the Magi that show up from the east, came to Jerusalem. Interesting, these men studied ancient texts. They studied the sky, they studied the stars, they studied the movement of the stars. They were looking for divine messages in the sky. We also know that there were 3 gifts. We sometimes get that confused with 3 wise men or 3 magi. There could have been 30 of them. We don't really know. The number's not given, but we know that there are 3 gifts presented. Verse 2 says, they asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." They believe something divine had happened. A Jewish king was born. In verse 3, when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. This threatened King Herod. This threatened his kingship. Of course, it had to make him uncomfortable. But look at what King Herod says next. In verse 4, it says, "When he called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them." Now remember, where they're looking for a king, this king born of the Jews. Look what Herod says here. He asked them, where the Messiah was to be born. So he calls the religious leaders together and get this. He's like, okay, look, you've heard a rumor. I've heard a rumor. A king's going to be born. The stars are even proclaiming something significant. So where's the Messiah prophesied to be born? Messiah, meaning God's final king, in Hebrew actually meaning anointed one, the anointed one. The Greek equivalent that shows up in our Greek New Testament, the word for this is the Christ. We're really familiar with this. Jesus Christ. Christ isn't just a last name. This isn't a nickname. Christ is a title. The title, the King. Jesus, King. King Jesus. Herod was threatened because he knew he needed to act. Because when a king is born, people must choose. People must choose. C.S. Lewis, I want to read this quote from him in this book called Case for Christianity. It's a little bit longer, but bear with me. I think it's really impactful for this message today. God will invade, but I wonder whether people who ask God to interfere openly and directly in our world quite realize what it will be like when he does. When that happens, it is the end of the world. When the author walks on the stage, the play is over. God is going to invade, all right. But what is the good of saying you are on his side then? When you see the whole natural universe melting away like a dream and something else, something that never entered your head to conceive, comes crashing in. Something so beautiful to some of us and so terrible to others that none of us will have any choice left. For this time, it will be God without disguise. God without disguise. The next time our King shows up, that's how it's going to be. It won't be a baby in a manger. It won't be a teacher on a hillside. It won't be a man that can be bound or crucified or beaten. No. Next time he shows up as king, it will be without disguise. Something so overwhelming that it will strike either irresistible love or irresistible horror into every creature. It will be too late then to choose your side. There is no use saying you choose to lie down when it has become impossible to stand up. That will not be the time for choosing. It will be the time when we discover which side we really have chosen, whether we realized it before or not. When a king is born, people must choose. Now, today, this moment is our chance to choose the right side. God is holding back to give us that chance. It will not last forever. We must take it or leave it. On Christmas, a king was born. That king is still king today. The question we got to ask ourselves, is he my king? Have I submitted myself to him? Have you accepted his invitation not simply to believe, but to follow? Herod believed. King Herod believed he was the king. Possibly even the Messiah. That's what he called him. But one thing was certain with King Herod. He was not about ready to bow his knee to another king. No, not with his legacy, not with his kingship. No, he wanted to sit on the throne. You see, each and every day we have the opportunity to choose who we are going to serve as king. Are we going to choose to serve ourselves? Or is Jesus going to be your king? If you've never surrendered your life to the King, today you can choose to make him the king of your life. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall have everlasting life. Believe in your heart, confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and you'll be saved. And then choose to serve him as your king. Follow him. And we get to choose to be a part of his kingdom on earth as it is reflected in heaven. I hope every one of you have a very Merry Christmas as we remember and reflect on this day where Christ was born as a newborn king and is still king today.